Hello, everyone, and welcome to Amazing Aircraft, where we take a look at some of the most fascinating and influential planes in history. Today, we're going to talk about a plane that was slow, ugly, and noisy, but also deadly, accurate, and heroic. A plane that helped win the most important naval battle of World War II and sank more enemy ships than any other Allied bomber. A plane that was loved by its pilots and feared by its enemies. A plane that was called the Douglas SBD Dauntless. Are you ready to dive into its story? Then buckle up and let's go. So, how did the SBD come to be? Well, it all started with a plane called the Northrop BT-1, which stood for Bomber Torpedo. Sounds cool, right? Well, not really. The BT-1 was a single-engine monoplane that was first flown in 1935, and it had a lot of problems. It was unstable, hard to land, prone to accidents, and had poor visibility. In fact, it was so bad that the Navy pilots who flew it gave it a nickname, the B-Turkey. Ouch. But there was hope. The BT-1 was modified and improved by Douglas Aircraft Corporation, which took over Northrop in 1937. The new plane was called the SBD, which stood for Scout Bomber Douglas. Sounds better, right? Well, it was. The SBD had distinctive perforated split flaps or dive brakes that reduced its speed and stabilized its dive. These flaps looked like Swiss cheese and made a loud noise when deployed, but they were very effective. The SBD also had a rugged structure, a long range, a potent bomb load, and good defensive armament. It could carry up to 1,200 pounds of bombs or a single torpedo, and it had two forward-firing machine guns and one or two rear-firing machine guns for the gunner. The SBD was not a beauty queen, but it was a tough and reliable workhorse. And it was about to prove its worth in the most epic way possible. The SBD entered service in mid-1939 and saw its first action at Pearl Harbor, where most of them were destroyed on the ground by the surprise Japanese attack. That was a bad day for the SBD, but it was not the end. It soon proved to be an excellent naval scout plane and dive bomber, sinking more enemy ships in the Pacific than any other Allied bomber. How did it do that? By diving from high altitude, releasing its bombs at the last moment, and pulling up before hitting the water. Sounds easy, right? Well, not really. It was a risky and nerve-wracking maneuver that required skill, courage, and luck. But the SBD pilots and gunners were up to the challenge. They delivered the fatal blast for Japanese carriers at the Battle of Midway in June 1942, turning the tide of the war. That was a good day for the SBD, but it was not the only one. It also participated in various raids and campaigns in the Coral Sea, Guadalcanal, the Philippines, and elsewhere. It was also flown by the U.S. Marine Corps, the U.S. Army Air Force, and several Allied nations. The SBD was a versatile and formidable plane that earned respect from both friends and foes. It was called the most valuable plane by Admiral Chester Nimitz, the best dive bomber by Admiral Ernest King, and the bane of our existence by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. That's high praise from high places. And that's why the SBD was a legend in the sky. By 1944, the SBD was becoming obsolete and was replaced by the more powerful and faster SBD Helldiver. The Helldiver had a higher maximum speed, a larger bomb load, and a longer range than the SBD, but it also had more problems and was less popular among pilots. The Helldiver was heavier, harder to handle, more prone to accidents, and less reliable than the SBD. It also had a nickname, the son of a bitch second class. Ouch. The SBD pilots and gunners were not happy to give up their trusty old plane for this new one. They said things like, "Give me my Dauntless back," or "I'd rather fly a kite than a Helldiver." But they had no choice. The SBD continued to fly with some Marine squadrons until the end of the war, but it was gradually phased out by the Helldiver and other newer aircraft. The last SBD rolled off the assembly line in July 1944, marking the end of an era. The SBD had served its country well, but it was time to say goodbye. The SBD was one of the most important aircraft in the Pacific War, earning its nickname slow but deadly for its accuracy and effectiveness. It was credited with more victories over enemy planes than losses from enemy action, a rare feat for a bomber. It was also one of the last dive bombers to see combat, as jet fighters and guided missiles made dive bombing obsolete. Today, Only a few SBDs survive in museums and collections around the world, where they are admired and honored by aviation enthusiasts and historians. The SBD was a plane that changed the course of history and left a lasting legacy in the sky. It was a plane that deserves our respect and gratitude. It was a plane that was truly dauntless. And that's why the SBD was an amazing aircraft. And that's the story of the Douglas SBD Dauntless, a remarkable aircraft that made a significant contribution to the Allied victory in World War II. It demonstrated the power and precision of dive bombing as a naval warfare tactic. It was slow, but deadly. It was ugly, but heroic. It was noisy, but effective. It was dauntless, and it was amazing. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more aviation history content. And don't forget to leave a comment below and tell us what you think of the SBD. Do you agree that it was an amazing aircraft? Or do you have another favorite plane from World War II? Let us know in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Amazing Aircraft.